Hi everybody, welcome to the Brain Book channel. I am Amir and today I want to talk about neuroscience and the neurobiology. If you want to study in the field of neuroscience or even if you want to choose your future career as a neuroscientist or neurobiologist, this video would be helpful for you to understand more and more about this field. What is neuroscience? It is known as a neural science, and it focuses on the study of how the nervous system develops, its structure, and what it does. For example, development of our brain from embryonic stages to our adult stages, and even this. The structure of the brain, including anatomy and its functions like physiology, and also what the brain does, for example, in cognition, perception, or other aspects of the brain activity. This field is a subdivision of the biology. As you may know, the biology is a highly uh, comprehensive field of science which includes different sub-branches like genetics, molecular biology, cellular biology, neuroscience, physiology, also about, for example, biochemistry, biophysics, and other things. The neuroscience focus on the nervous system, but as the brain is the most complex part of our brain, and it is more unknown. The main part of the neuroscientists and the researchers are focused on the brain. What neuroscience does? Uh, it's obvious that what it does, but mainly it focuses on the brain and its impact on the behavior and the cognitive functions. It includes the normal brain and study of the normal brain, and also focuses on the neurological, psychiatric, and neurodevelopmental disorders. In addition, it tries to prevent some neurological disorders and diseases. And if we face with this kind of situation and diseases, it tries to treat the problems which is affected our brain and nervous system. For example, currently there are several researchers around the world that focuses on the neurodegenerative diseases. If you choose to be a neuroscientist, and if you study neuroscience at university, in the future you can get different jobs which are in the diverse category of science, industry, and fields. But here I have provided some careers that are related to the neuroscience, and if you graduate from the university with in the neuroscience field, you could be, for example, a biotechnologist. Also, you could be a clinical research assistant, a clinical scientist or researcher. Even you could be a university professor or a teacher at high schools. And you could be a pharmacy science technician, or you could work in a pharmacy industry or work in a laboratory, and also a pharmaceutical researcher to find drugs, or for example other things, or be a psychometrist. Uh, the careers which are related to the neuroscience are not limited to this list, and there are a bunch of other careers that you can choose for your future, but here I have provided some of them. Why neuroscience? I myself am fascinating with the complexity of our nervous system. And as you may know, The brain is one of the most complex phenomena in our nature, and it's one of the most unknown things in the world, which made it interesting to learn more and more. For example, there are around 86 billions of neurons in our brain. No, it's interesting. Uh, a, uh, Enormous number of the neurons in our brain. What will happen? How they work? How they connect each other? And how they contribute. And another interesting part is that these 86 billion neurons made about 1 quadrillion synapses that make each individual specific. And the pattern of the molecular and the chemical pattern of the synapses of each individual is different. This made us fascinating and made the neuroscience fascinating and made each individual exclusive. It was so interesting for me because it was a kind of challenge to choose a neuroscience to, for example, research about something that it's ambiguous. Totally, the neuroscience try to understand what it is to be a human. For example, you know that human is be different from other creatures because our mind, our critical thinking, our behavior, our social activity, because our brain is more complex. And by studying neuroscience, we can understand that uh, what are differences with in comparison with other creatures. And also, we can understand and enhance a healthy brain. For example, we can increase the brain activity and capability in the future to, for example, do some mathematical calculation by our brain, some advanced mathematical calculations, or, for example, to increase our imagination, to think beyond our galaxy, to, for example, understand what happens in other galaxies or other things. And it's not in the far future, and we will reach in the this this kind of science in the near future. And to understand and treat brain diseases and disorder, one of the main motivation of the scientist and researcher is that to solve the human being problems in the field of biomedical sciences, and to, for example, treat the brain disorders in our routine life. Uh, what a neuroscientist do. Totally, neuroscientists are working with the neurons, but they want to understand and describe the human brain and how it functions normally. Also, neuroscientists tend to know how the nervous system develops, how it matures and maintains itself throughout life, and understand the changes in the brain, for example, cancers, diseases, and other conditions. And also understand the neurological and psychiatric disorders and find a way to prevent and cure these kind of problems. These are the main works of the neuroscientist. And if you want to be a neuroscientist, your goals would be a part of these activities. And if you, for example, study neuroscience, you can find your work at university, hospital, or governmental agencies or private industries, for example, some factories. At university, you can research or teach. Also, For example, in hospitals, you can do some experiments and for diagnosis and other things. And in governmental agencies, you can, for example, go to some specific industries. For example, marketing, which recently is related to the neuroscience and psychology. Here I provide a brief definition about researching because I myself choose researching at universities in the field of neuroscience, and researcher in this field will design and carry out the scientific experiments that contribute to the understanding of the nervous system and its functions. For example, I myself working on adult neurogenesis and how the extracellular matrix patterns the cell fates and cell behaviors in the adult brain. There are four main fields of neuroscience, which are molecular and cellular neuroscience, cognitive, medical, and computational. Among these things, you may know the molecular and cellular, cognitive and medical, and computational is a combination of the computer science, data science, and these things. For example, with medical, with cognitive and molecular and cellular neuroscience. And if you choose a neuroscience as your future career, you should, or I can say, you have to understand the computational science and the data science, which is related to the neuroscience. Because in this era, we have to know the data analysis, for example, the bioinformatics in the biomedical sciences to interpret our data or our research results or to uh, define our data better. Uh, as you can see here, there are type of neuroscience researchers: developmental neuroscience, which describe how our brain forms from embryonic stages, how it grows and matures, for example, in adolescent ages or adult ages, and how it changes in different contexts. For example, in the case of trauma, in the case of a stroke, or even in the case of, for example, specific condition. For example, in the space, astronaut's brain will be changed. How it changes. It's about developmental neuroscience. And there is another part of neuroscience, which is cognitive neuroscience, which is about how our brain creates and controls our thoughts, how it influence our language and some other aspects like problem solving and our memory, which is related to the cognitive neuroscience. And also the cell and molecular neuroscience, which explores the genes, proteins, and other molecules that guide how our neuron functions. If you like to be a neuroscientist, you may work in one of these three fields. And my current field is a combination of developmental neuroscience and the molecular and cellular neuroscience. And how about neuroscience as your future job? Currently, not in the future, but currently there is a high demand for expertise in the neuroscience, in the health and biomedical fields. It's due to a growing crisis in our societies. For example, there are several people that facing with neurodegenerative diseases, some psychological problems, and other things. For this thing, there is a big demand for neuroscience research, and if you study neuroscience or neurobiology, you will definitely find a good career in your future. And in comparison with other careers, neuroscientist has a good income. And another interesting part is that it has a better flexible future as artificial intelligence is developing. For example, In the near future, some colleagues that work on artificial intelligence or, for example, stem cell biology could contribute with each other and develop their research. For example, say to some specific stem cells that, hey, this patient has a, for example, kind of neurodegenerative problem. And with the artificial intelligence, we say to the, for example, neurons, how they divide, how they uh, develop in the brain, or how they migrate and compensate the lackness of, for example, some specific molecule or other thing in the brain, and for treatment of this kind of diseases. And finally, we could say that what a neuroscientist do. You know that if you choose a neuroscience, there are a wide range of research and studies you can conduct, or even you can focus on industry or other aspects of the science. But the most interesting part is that as the neuroscience is by far the most exciting branch of science because the brain is the most fascinating object in the universe, and it makes neuroscience interesting. I myself have a kind of personality which is a challenger. For this reason, I have chosen neuroscience because it is challenging. You know, you are familiar with experiments and you know what are you doing, but you do not expect the result. You may find something uh, which is outstandingly and extraordinarily novel in the neuroscience, because we do not anything about our brain function, because we are in the beginning of this journey to understand the brain function, and it would be definitely a fascinating journey. If you have a question, you can send me emails to help you. And if you think that this video is helpful for you, please put the like button and subscribe my channel for my future videos. Thank you. Bye.